Thank you everyone for joining us today. We have our special guest, Veronica Stephens, here with us from Laura's House. This is our third installation of our four-part series, What Do I Do Now? Steps to a Survivor. Today, we're gonna have a discussion about what is it like to access a shelter? What does that mean? What am I gonna, anticipate going into a shelter? So super excited that we have Ms. Stephens here to join us for this discussion and shed some light on this what can be a very mystifying experience. So Ms. Stephens, if you want to jump right in, tell us about yourself, what got you into this work, what keeps you coming back every day to stuff like this?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to our discussion. I think this will be, fun is a weird word, but honestly,
Right.
like you said, to be able to demystify, I think is really, really important. So I am the education and outreach manager at Laura's House and do events like this, as well as going to oversee the prevention side of this, because as I'm sure you can attest to, as much as we love the kiddos out there, we do not want to have them as clients. Right. And so we talk about the healthy relationships within the middle schools, high schools, and the youth-based programs, as well as provide adult education. So you'll see just a little glimpse of what I do, but excited to be here. Thank you for all that you all do.
Thank you. Of course. Awesome. Well, I think maybe let's jump right in. I'm going to throw something out there. I've heard before when we've talked with some of our clients and just kind of trying to educate people on options available to them when they're in a domestic violence situation. Some people have made the comment of, why should I call a shelter and trust a stranger, or, call a hotline with someone who doesn't know me? Why wouldn't it be safer for me to just tell my family and friends? Why should I even go through the process of contacting a shelter? If someone has that thought, what would you say to them?
Honestly, I think the very thought of calling a hotline and accessing a shelter would be very intimidating. And you're already in a state of vulnerability in that moment. So honestly, if there are friends and family, that a person who's on the receiving end of harm in an intimate partner relationship, if they have that support system, then many do choose to do that. And that is valid. Now, if they are under constant threat, meaning physical threat, and all the host of the other threats that a person in an intimate partner relationship can be on the receiving end of, then that is usually when they want to seek shelter. And also there's an underlying layer of, they're probably not just going to go after me, they're going to go after my family, or they're going to go after my friends, whoever I contact, which is why we always recommend safe words. So what a safe word is, if a person is in this kind of tumultuous relationship, and even if they think that they will never leave their partner, and that is not unusual either. When people access the services of domestic violence agencies, often they think, listen, I have no intention of actually ending the relationship. What I'm exploring is how to end the harm in my relationship. So, that again, we're going to, any kind of domestic violence agency is going to accept the client for where they are in their journey. Irregardless if in their mind, in their perspective, this is very minor, I just need to work through a few issues, or good heavens, I need to exit and exit fast. And everywhere on the spectrum, we are going to recommend a safety plan. And that safety plan, as I said, with that code word, it is a word that we will recommend that they choose, that they don't use in everyday life. So I like to give the example of unicorn, because I don't know about you, but I don't actually use unicorn every single day. Starbucks maybe, but not unicorn. And so we will say, okay, you're going to tell your kind of safe person, whether that is a friend or family, that if ever I use unicorn, then that means it's game on. Like, I'm exiting, and if you don't hear from me, it means that I'm in a shelter, or maybe they are that safe haven. So I'm on my way. It'll take about 20 minutes. And if I'm not there in 20 minutes, I need you to call the police. So all those things have been worked out. And in the event of the exit, if they have chosen to go to the shelter, as we were saying, maybe they've decided, listen, I don't want to put my friends and family in harm's way. This is kind of layer of protection. where they can text message their friend or family member and say, how was at Target today? And they have the cutest little unicorn stuffed animal or a really cool unicorn wrapped. However, they weave that into that text message. The person on the receiving end knows it is game on. They're going to be here, and my clock is now start ticking. If I don't see them in 20 minutes, then, or whatever that time frame is, I'm calling 911 and letting them know that there's a domestic disturbance at whatever that address is. Typically, partners will grab the phone of their partner upon the exit. Even if they're not saying, I'm leaving you for good, they can tell they're heading for the door. And so they will grab their phone. They'll try to get their car keys as well. So we always suggest you have a hide key for your car. And then when they grab the cell phone, and they see that they just texted their mom or whoever that Target has a really cute unicorn, what they're not reading is, I'm leaving, I can't stand this anymore, I'm afraid, I'm heading over. So irregardless of if they feel as though, gosh, that's a real extreme measure to go to a shelter, that would be that layer of protection that we would really suggest is, okay, if you have chosen a friend and family, then let's go ahead and work with you on the safest possible exit. Irregardless, we always defer to the person on the receiving end of harm. What do you want your journey to look like? That is one thing, is we really don't advise. Once they tell us, this is, I want to stay. Okay, so we're going to keep you as safe as possible. So let's go ahead and start that journey with you. Or I got to get out. Okay, awesome. Then this is what you do to access our shelter. And if anybody calls our hotline and they are requesting or they're in need of emergency shelter on that very first phone call, they are going to be offered our shelter on that very first phone call.
Got it. Okay. Speaking of that, being offered the shelter, maybe you can talk about what that is. What does it mean to access a shelter? What does that process look like?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And it is, to me, that is, as your opening question suggests, is probably one of the most overwhelming decisions someone can make. And I absolutely appreciate that that would be the case. So if somebody, and before I even talk about the process, to get into kind of the headspace of a person who might be making this call, is that it's really important for us to understand that people don't really leave angry partners, they escape them. So there was probably at least weeks, if not months, in the making for that particular person on getting their ducks in a row, if it were, maybe having, disclosed to friends and family, but like I said, they don't feel safe going to them. They don't want to put their friends or family in harm's way, or they don't have friends and family. That happens. They are in a harmful, intimate partner relationship. And we know that one of the things they do is isolate. And so they have had no contact with friends and family for months, if not years. So they have decided, I'm doing my exit, and I guarantee you, they have been planning on this for a long time. And then they finally make that phone call. What it would look like at Laura's house is we do have a trained advocate on the other end of that call. The very first thing they're going to ask the person who calls, is this a secure line? Now, what a secure line means is this your phone plan and you are the only one that has access to the bill or to the billing information. If it is a partner plan or a family plan, then we are going to assume that their partner is tracking them, as well as we'll see that they called the Laura's House hotline. If they say, no, I have a family plan, why? Then we'll say, we're going to end this call now for your safety. What we recommend, and we're going to give them several options, is get a friend or family member where you can get a secure line and use their phone. If you're in imminent danger, you're going to want to call 911. And if you know your neighbor, you can just go next door and ask them to use their phone. You need to use a phone that your partner doesn't have access to. What a lot of people don't know as well is, at least here in Orange County, people can call 211. So when they call 211, 211 will actually connect them to Laura's house. And on the phone bill, it will show that they have been on the phone with 211 for like 15 minutes, 45 minutes, however long that phone call is. And then they can, 211 is like the 411, the old 411. And so, that one is more easily explained away, or I was asking, for this resource or that resource. So we will give them those suggestions. And when they call back, then we will go ahead and kind of start that intake process. We will ask them what is happening. Again, why do you feel in danger? And when they answer all these questions and they absolutely now need the shelter, then the very first step is going to be, we're going to give them a location that is not our shelter, that is called our safety net. And that is some hotel in Orange County that is really generous and works with Laura's House and will allow our potential client to stay there with their children free of charge. And of course, we're going to give them the name that they're going to use to check in. It will not be their name, their pseudonym. And then one of our representatives and our advocates will meet them there and get them settled in. And, they probably just left with clothes on their backs and that of their children. So we're going to give them that care package. And then we're going to do the second layer of intake. And the reason why we need kind of that cooling off period is the average time that it takes for a person to leave an angry partner or a harmful relationship for good is 6 times, which means leaving is not the problem, staying away is. And so often there's that rebound, right? So the reason why they left is because of an explosion, because their partner hit them, because they cut them off financially and screamed and yelled and threatened to take the kids away. There was some sort of event that was hostile, where they, when it first happens, there's shock, there's terror, and there's kind of this gut instinct. I don't deserve this. My children shouldn't be exposed to this if there's children involved. And so there's kind of that core inner small voice that's like, I'm done. And then they leave that partner. And that's when that dust settles and their phone blows up. Right. So their partners, I am so sorry, and I'll get sober. We'll get counseling. Once I get a job, I'm going to even out. I mean, there's going to be all sorts of apologies and promises and ultimatums, and it will usually be all over the map. I am so sorry. I love you. We need to get our family back together. You know what? You're an effing biatch. Blah, 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 blah. And then, I didn't mean that. I mean, they're like this on their phone messages and their text messages. And the person on the receiving end of it then gets sucked right back in. So we want to make sure that they are good with their choice. Okay, now let's go ahead and start this second layer. And so when COVID was introduced, obviously, then that was part of the quarantine. So they would have the COVID testing, they would have to do that mandated quarantine time and then be retested. And now that has been, the CDC has shortened that duration. So we're still following those protocols. However, they have decided, listen, this is what I want. At that point, they will be taken from our safety net, and then we will take them to our shelter. And once they're in our shelter, everything, just as it was in the safety net, we provide everything for them. So they are going to be given clothes for them and their children. They're going to be given kind of a welcome basket, and their children are also going to receive a little welcome gifts. And then they'll be shown to their room, and that will be the room that they remain in, and they will share the room with their children. So we don't, separate the family like that. And then they can stay with us up to 45 days in that emergency shelter, where their food, hygiene products, everything, counseling is going to be offered to them. Legal advocacy is going to be offered to them. After the end of 45 days, if they decide, I want to get better, this is the path that I'm going to stay on. I'm not getting back with my partner. I need to do some of that hard inward work as well. But I have no place to go. And then we'll offer them our transitional housing. And so they can just transition from emergency shelter to our transitional housing. And our transitional housing, it is a case-by-case basis. And so they'll be with us anywhere from 6 months to 12 months. It really depends on how many barriers they need to overcome between them and self-sufficiency.
Okay.
And in our transitional, there's going to be some more accountability now. So now we are going to say, counseling is no longer just an option, it is a requirement. So they're going to start the counseling and have a case manager. And then if they need help with budgeting, if they've never been to work, okay, here are the resources to help with the resume. If they're undocumented, here are the resources to start that process. If they need Section 8 housing, here you go. Here's the list. Let's start following those applications, because that can take up to a year. So we're going to do that immediately when they come in, but maybe they don't need Section 8 housing. Maybe they're waiting for divorce settlement. You know, there's everyone is a unique situation. So we will be with them as they journey through their recovery.
Okay. That's amazing. That's such a large option, many options that you guys offer to, you know, the individuals that are coming into the shelters. And I just want to clarify for those that are watching, is it available to anyone who identifies as a woman, identifies as a male? Is it only one specific population that would be able to access the resources at Laura's house?
Anybody. And yes, we've had men in our shelter. And whenever we offer services to men, we don't integrate, because the chances are they're going to trigger each other. And so we want all of our clients to feel really safe. Now, in the shelter, yes, when a male accesses our shelter, then they're going to, because it's 2 floors, they're going to be on a separate floor. They're going to have their own private bathroom, compared to the other clients where, yes, some of them have their private bathrooms, and some of them have kind of that Jack and Jill, where there is rooms on either side, and then there's just one shared bathroom in between. So we make sure that, again, they feel safe and there's no potential harm and all of that. Excellent question, though.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to clarify that. You had talked about being in the emergency shelter for 45 days. Maybe can you shed some light on someone who is first coming into that? What do they do with kids who are in school? What are they supposed to do about, you know, if they have a job? What if they're, you know, wanting to call their family and friends? What does that 45 days look like for all of those other things?
Okay, great question. Excellent question. Okay, when they enter the shelter, the first thing we're going to do is their technology devices have to be shut off, batteries removed, whatever we need to do, because they're probably being tracked. And so we already took that measure once they were in safety net. But I do want to introduce that concept, is they're being tracked. And so they'll come to our shelter. And I would say anybody that works I was in the human trafficking space for 10 years prior to crossing over to domestic violence, and some on the victim recovery as well on the prevention side. And what people kind of think of is anybody, whether they're a traffic victim, a domestic violence victim, on the receiving end of harm, is they're going to come in broken, they're going to come in sad, they're going to just be like and kind of euphoric because now they have a safe place. No. They've been on the receiving end of evil. They are, a lot of times they are so strong. It takes so much strength to survive a bad relationship. It takes emotional bandwidth. It takes psychological fortitude to be able to navigate the gaslighting. They fought inwardly to keep that family together. Their fight was a righteous one. It's just that when you've got a partner, it is up to them to also join that righteous cause. And if they don't, Dr. Jill Murray has the best saying that hope is not a good strategy. And that is probably where their anchor was, just hoping it'll change, hoping if they take that high road, then their partner will rise up to meet them. And that was never going to happen. And so kind of you've got a twofold thing going on, this duality. You have got extreme hopelessness, probably raging with inside of feeling like a failure. Why didn't they love me enough to change? All this kind of despair.
Right.
And then you also have the fighting spirit of, I will not be broken. I
Right.
am going to get help.
Right.
And so there's this duality going inside. It's like a
Right.
whirlwind of
Right.
hopelessness
Right.
and
Right.
fight and power and weakness.
Right.
It is a lot for them to manage.
Mhm.
So when they enter our shelter and they are given their care packages, the best word I could use to describe it is we view it as triage. Is when they
Mhm.
come, we really defer to them. We
Mhm.
understand they're in a fog. Now maybe that the dust is settled, they're like, holy guacamole, what have I just done?
Right.
I
Right.
cannot believe I took this step. They're going to kill me.
Right. Right.
Or they were the primary breadwinner. I will never be able to
Yeah.
provide for myself and my children. When
Yeah.
we exit the shelter, we're going to live in a cardboard box under a bridge.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of doubt, a lot of self-deprecation.
Right.
And like I said, that duality of, no, I will do it. If I can make the phone call, I could actually make this happen.
Right.
And so they're going to be offered and provided a therapist and counseling resources to help them navigate through this.
Right.
Now, we really want them to take us up on that offer.
Yeah.
However, sometimes they're like, I'm not ready to talk about it, and they need to just be in their own head for a minute.
Right.
And during that, even that entire 45 days, they're like, they don't want to talk about it. They
Mhm.
don't have any intention to talk about it.
Mhm.
And we allow them that journey. That's why I said when they go into transitional,
Yeah.
no, now we're going to reconstruct lives.
Right.
But they could be in a fog at this
Okay.
point. And as far as their children are also going to be offered counseling as well.
Okay.
Because as you well know, Jessica, the child does not have to be on the receiving end of that angry parent's actions,
Right.
meaning that maybe they weren't the targeted one. They were never hit, they were never
Right.
demoralized, they never
Right.
were gaslighted, whatever that
Right.
harm was. But when they observed one of their parents doing it to another parent or caretakers doing it to each other, the harmful effects will last a lifetime
Right.
unless identified and mitigated.
Right.
So we really encourage, and we have the most amazing therapeutic program for children. Like, it is amazing. And so our therapist will do play therapy, art therapy. And then we have sand like this for those kinesthetic children that just need to get their fingers
Yeah.
into a whole host of things. And so they
Yeah.
can draw on this. It's like a sandbox kind of up on a table type thing. And then they can draw, they can put the figurines so they can recreate what mommy and daddy did to each other, or mommy and stepdad, or stepdad, whoever,
Right.
reenact what they saw. And that will be offered to the children. The children will now also be pulled from their school, whatever school they were in.
Okay.
And there is a local school that is aware of Laura's House and the safety protocols that we have in place for our clients. So then we notify the school that there's going to be a new admission.
Okay.
And then we also then do those safety protocols of who's allowed to pick up that child. If there is a restraining order in place, of course, we submit it to that school as well, as there's a restraining order for this person. If they come, you need to call the police because they're in violation of the restraining order. So we work with that school, and that school is amazing. And really, most schools, whether it's a shelter or not, they understand restraining orders,
Right.
regrettably, this happens a lot.
Right.
And so we just let them know, okay, here we are.
Right.
And here's the new child or your
Right.
new student. That being said, one of the other factors that comes into play when we deal with children, and which is an extra layer of trauma for the protective parent who is leaving and taking the children with them. Often the children will turn on the parent who is choosing to protect them and their family.
Interesting.
Because in a child's view, in a child's mind, you broke up our family.
Yeah.
You left mommy. You left daddy.
Right.
And why can't you just forgive them? This is how it's always been. Why is now any different? They're going to be lost without us. They need us.
Right.
What's going to happen?
Right.
And so the mom, and that can be in a very sorrowful presentation where the child is very in touch with their emotions.
Right.
But typically, especially for males, for their sons, that sorrow and that sadness is way too painful. And so the emotion they're going to tap into is anger. And they are going to be spitting mad, and they are not going to withhold, and I'm not going to stay, and I'm going to run away, and I don't want to be with you. I want to be with whatever other parent it is. And now, both of them are injured, and now they both need to start the healing process. I remember years ago talking to our shelter coordinator, our shelter manager, and she was saying, man, there was a mom, and her son was a pre-adolescent. I would say he's about 11 and 12. Such a difficult age anyways, just in the world, let alone in the situation in the shelter. And he was so angry. I mean, just so angry at her, angry at the staff, acting out in the new school. I mean, these kids, everything, their world is turned upside down. Not only are they pulled from their home and into this, protected environment, but now they're pulled from their school. It's a very unsettling time. And so, that's why you just need experts that are highly trained to be able to help navigate. Most people just think the injured party, which is that adult, but the children through this process. Now that's kind of the intensity of it. Let me tell you, the byproduct is by the time they leave, there has been recovery and healing. And I don't mean recovery, because I don't think recovery is a destination. So when I say recovery, I think recovery is a journey, and it's going to last a lifetime.
Absolutely.
But they have started on that beautiful journey, and the healing really has begun, and hope has entered back in, and that sense of helplessness has diminished, and empowerment has increased. And they really do, once they exit after 6 months in our transitional, or a year in our transitional, whatever it looked like, they are on a path of freedom.
This can look different for every person. But maybe if you can share a little light on how would someone know that they're ready? You talked about being in the fog and this being a journey. How can someone know this is the time that I need to make that call? This is the time when I need to do something different.
Okay, that is awesome. When it comes to being ready to make that call, whenever I give presentations, I always say everybody needs to have an emergency shelter hotline in your cell phone. Everyone. Because the national averages are 1 in 3 females will encounter in their lifetime. Anywhere from 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 males will encounter it. For members of the LGBTQ plus community, they're at the female statistic, it's 1 in 3. So we know it's pervasive. So we know some member of our family or some member of our friendship group. And this is where I love that you're starting this conversation, because it seems like it is such a monumental call. No, it's a call. Legitimately, it's a phone call. So it could be a call of exploration. I cannot tell you how many times people call our hotline and go, okay, so my friends recommended or my family recommended I call. I don't think I'm in an abusive relationship. I think they're blowing this out of proportion. They've never laid a hand on me. So, I mean, I don't really think I qualify. But anyways, and then they talk about the fight the night before, where there's gaslighting, emotional harm, and they're right in the smack dab in that financial harm. They've been iced out of their bank accounts, like their world is collapsing. And they're like, I don't really think it's abuse, but I just thought I'd call. And so that is usually just the first step. At that point, they're not asking for shelter.
Right.
And they're just finding out about our resources because they haven't asked for the shelter and it doesn't appear that they need the shelter. We're going to start then, saying we do have counseling resources. We could have a therapist call you back if that's what you would look into, and tell them a little bit about our therapeutic process. So when it comes to making that first phone call, I would love to just diminish kind of the electricity behind what brings a person there, because it's not that, someone should call a hotline just to shoot the breeze, right? I mean, there has to be some intentionality behind it.
Right.
But hopefully we can get them to make that call before they need a shelter. Let's make that phone call before it escalates to the fact that you need to get the heck out of Dodge. And now you're undercover, and so are your children. Like if we can mitigate this prior to that, and start the personal empowerment program, the therapeutic program, and start unpacking this so that maybe there can be some slower, more calculated decisions made along the way that are not being made in duress. And then they won't be questioned as much. Because when I said that, when they're in that safety net, do we have clients that are like, I blew this out of proportion, they are right, I'm difficult, I'm the problem, I want to go back. Then you say, okay, right? Their power has been taken from them, from their partner, all day long. And so part of our work is giving them back that power. You have the power to decide whether you remain in that relationship or not. But then we give them what's going to happen on our end. Okay, now that you've entered this process, if you decide a week from now, a month from now, to leave your partner again, we're not going to be able to offer you our emergency shelter. Because for your safety and the safety of our clients and our staff, because your partner will get the location out of you. And so we will help channel you to another agency locally, and they will begin their process if there's availability on their end. But just like in every relationship, you need to know what the consequences are for actions. And so, yes, they're free to take that, but we also want them to know, unfortunately, this door will close for your protection as well as ours and our clients.
Right. And that kind of ties back into something you had mentioned in the beginning about the it taking an average around 6 times for someone to really make that decision to leave. But knowing that, Laura's House supports them and giving them that power back to say, this is your decision. Whatever you want to do, we will support you in that. However, we do have to look at other options. Like you said, if you decide to come back in a week, in a month, we would need to, give you some other resources. It was something,
and that is only for a shelter. So people bounce in and out of counseling quite a bit. That's not unusual. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's make that very clear. Just for the emergency shelter. Again, all with under the guise of safety, right?
Absolutely.
It's not that trying to punish someone. It's just for the safety.
In no way.
Absolutely.
Thank you for really driving that point home. And it's not punitive. It is for safety reasons.
Right. Absolutely. You had mentioned about taking, slow and thoughtful steps and not doing things out of haste. Let's say someone is, watching this video and they're in that part of the journey. You're trying to make decisions and figure out what this process is going to look like. Is there anything that they should anticipate bringing with them to the shelter? Maybe some documents or, favorite teddy bear for kiddo. I don't know. Some things that maybe they should think, let me pack this away for when I get to that point in my journey.
Yes, that's perfect. So, like I said, no matter where our client is at on their journey, we will always ask them to have that code word ready, as well as a safety planning list. And we help them with that. We will give them a safety planning list. Not everything applies to them. So it's very generic. But what we recommend, and this we do hold accountable for, is they get a small bag, a big bag, whatever bag they can get. And then, yes, we want them to start gathering important documents, such as their birth certificate, as well as the birth certificates of their children. If there is a marriage in place, a copy of the marriage license. And because there are ricochets and rebounds, if divorce papers, like it already been filed, and so they already went through the dissolution process, and then they pulled it because they reconciled. And we're going to say, you know what? I know you're in the process of reconciliation. Still get those divorce papers in that bag. And then if there's restraining orders or protective orders in place, then we want that custody orders. If those are already in place, put that in that bag. When it comes to protective order, custody orders, or restraining orders, yes, you want a copy in the bag, but those particular orders have on your person at all time, whether in your wallet, in your purse, one in your glove box, because those you need to be able to pull out to show law enforcement officers if there's an event where they need help. And then we recommend the second set of keys, definitely for the car, because the car keys are probably going to be taken away, as well as the home. If they can get a copy of their lease and their deed. And the reason being that we want a copy of that, we only recommend it if their name is on it. So like the example we just gave, they're going to be the ones exiting the property, right? And now really the primary aggressor gets to live in the apartment or the home because they just left the home. What they're going to be able to do is go through the court system, especially if they need that restraining order, and say, yes, they're occupying the home, but my name is on the lease as well, or my name is on the deed. And I should be able to live in that home. I need a restraining order against them. They need an order to vacate. And so then we need that legal document to prove that they have rightful ownership or lease rights to be able to access that home. And the judge is going to need that as well. Car registration. Get the car registration. They should never take off in a car where their name is not on that registration. So let's say the partners have one collective car, right? The car is registered in their partner's name, and yet they are the ones who make the payments. So they feel like, or at least help make the payments, I have just as much right to that car as they do because I make the payments. Guess what will happen when they take that car? Their partner's going to call and say, so-and-so just stole my car. Their name isn't on it. It's my car. It's my car. And now they are in a world of hurt. And so they should only exit in a car that their name is on the registration solely or as an or, Mr. or Mrs. whoever. So car registration. And then, yes, we do recommend little family heirlooms because the partner is going to probably be like the Tasmanian devil and go through and like destroy everything. Excuse me. So maybe a grandfather's stopwatch that's been passed down from generation to generation, a great grandmother's locket, get that in a pendant, whatever small. We can't take large furniture items. They're not going to be able to exit with that. So it's just something really small and personal. Put that in there. And a child's, if they have a favorite binky, if they have a favorite snuggly, if they have a book that you read to them every single night, get a digital copy of that, put it in that bag. We also recommend getting some cash. Now, if they go to the ATM and withdraw, it might send up a red flag, but guess what? You can go to Target and buy a candy bar and get $20 cash back. And then you can go to Vons and buy a carton of milk and get $20 cash back. So just kind of start saving. Like I said, you don't really leave, you escape. And so that is how they're starting to put some money away. And then I also recommend when it comes to like little pictures. So if there's favorite pictures, those will probably be ripped up. The bases, frames destroyed. People feel really secure because they're in a Google Cloud account or whatever. Those tend to be shared, and the partner can go in and delete all of them. So I recommend just getting a new Gmail account or whatever platform you choose. Do not tell the partner, and then just start copying the files and putting it in that account that only they have access to. So those are the kind of skipping a stone across the pond, some of the things that we recommend. Once they have doctor's phone numbers, social security cards, passports, especially if the partner is not from America, that is not their country of origin, and they can grab the kids and go back to their family and country of origin. We want them to have their children's passports so their kids cannot be kidnapped from them.
Right.
And then put that bag in a safe place. And this will be unique to them. So it could be in the garage where there's some lumber or boxes, and they'll be able to sneak it behind there. Maybe it's in a closet, the downstairs closet where the partner never goes in that closet.
Right.
They can put it in there. So they're going to find just a secure place. And if there are weapons in the home and they can safely get those out, that would be advisable if there's that level of threat. So there's quite a bit of safety planning that goes into place. But that's an excellent question. And I think that should be explored every single time, even if they think, oh, my emergency shelter is just one phone call away. No, you're going to, it is, but you're going to really regret having not packed that bag.
Right. What about pets? What happens if someone has a pet?
Yes. So when it comes to pet, we don't have pets in our shelter, but some people won't leave because of a pet, right? And of course. So we work with a pet care agency, and they will take their cat or their dog for free for the entire time that they are in our shelter, love on them, feed on them, whatever medical care they need, and then they will be reunited once they exit our shelter or transitional. Awesome. And once in the transitional, they have a little bit more freedom, right? So now they might be starting to go to work. They are in now. We are doing life. We are doing life outside of abuse. So I believe at this point, then once the safety measures are put into place and everything has been secured, then they'll be able to, we could probably get them to be able to see their animal. But yeah, that's a huge, huge obstacle.
Absolutely. Awesome. I think that this has been a really fruitful conversation. I definitely thank you again, Veronica, for your time and taking the time to explain in the minor details, of some of these things and some of the things that you might not have even thought about, and taking the time to make the preparation for not making a hasty decision. Of course, if it's, imminent danger, by all means, do what you have to do to protect yourself and your children. But thinking about how you can make this more of a smoother escape process, more than just, let me just, hastily make a decision. So thank you again. I appreciate it. It's been a wonderful, wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Jessica. I am so delighted that we were able to have this discussion for the past hour, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Same as well. And hopefully we'll be able to definitely reconnect and maybe have another conversation, in some of our future series. But speaking of future series, this is as I mentioned in the beginning, third installation of our 4-part series. The next topic will be Dr. Nogales and Jennifer Zawada, our clinical director. They will be discussing the importance of long-term mental health after surviving domestic violence and what all that process looks like. Please, if you can leave any comments down below. I believe Laura's House, your information will be in our description box, and how people can access your services. That should be available down below in the description. Thank you to all of our viewers for joining us for this conversation. Please reach out to either us here at Casa or Laura's House if you're looking for additional support for any of the topics that we had during our discussion today.
Thank you so much.